but hopefully you'll see it on your screen. So um, my name is Christopher Arnold. I am the Northeast Region Liaison at the United States Department of Defense, the State Liaison Office. And do you have the entire slide up on your screen, or are you still seeing my Microsoft PowerPoint?
We can see the screen.
You
I
can
mean, we
see
can
the
see
whole
the
screen.
PowerPoint. We can see the PowerPoint.
Roger. Okay, so we were founded by the Undersecretary back in 2004. And unlike my predecessor, Harold, who many of you knew, and most of my colleagues who had 30-year careers on active duty, I have a bit of a different background. I am a combat vet, go Army, but for a lot of the last decade prior to taking this position, I was similar to you. I worked as a legislative director, chief of staff, committee director in both houses of the legislature. Our office handles state government affairs for DOD on almost every issue. And we've passed about 900 bills since the time of our inception. A little bit about our process. We have a top 10 key issue list, which you're likely familiar with. It's sort of a David Letterman that's selected by the military service secretaries, the chief of the National Guard Bureau, and the Secretary of Defense. That's for marketing purposes. Nothing ever really falls off unless it's OBE, but when something's been effectuated in 40 or more states, it becomes a candidate for removal and a new issue will come on. So what you see here is where we started in 2020. And because that was cut short, a lot of states fell behind. You know, they're usually doing 2 to 3 per year. And you can have a piece of legislation that encompasses more than one of our issues. You can have multiple bills that encompass our issues. But the chart here just shows, you know, how many of the current 10 key issues a state had versus where they are now. And we have several states that are still underway. So Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Rhode Island, you still got time, and Massachusetts. And I expect Massachusetts actually to have a very dramatic improvement because they have one bill that has 4 policies in it. So it may end up at a 7. And then the other column is the total number of bills passed that address our issues. So I'm happy to say that you can see the map change here, and we have a lot of green. So we enacted 56 policies in the Northeast this year on military family quality of life issues, which is the most ever. There were 35 laws that have been signed so far. I have another 4 that are sitting on the governor's desk. Additionally, we joined 10 interstate compacts, and then there were 4 major executive orders that effectuated those 56 policies. Some special shout outs. State of Connecticut passed House Bill 6449, which made Connecticut the 50th and final state to have a military spouse specific licensure law, and it expresses the department's fullest intent of a license issued within 30 days. We also had New York becoming the 49th state to provide unemployment compensation for military spouses as they're PCSing in or PCSing out, thanks to Assemblywoman Matilde Frontis, who represents Fort Hamilton. And the only state that's left is in North Dakota, so I'm pleased to say that the rest of the region is a green there. In Maine, we had one of our most dramatic improvements. As you saw, they went from 1 of 10 to 9 of 10, and that was due in large part to Senator Joseph Baldacci, who helped me quarterback in front of a number of committees, the Professional Licensure Committee with Representative Hepler and Senator Sanborn, the Education Committee with Representative Brennan, worked with the Senate President Jackson, and Majority Leader Vitelli. But Legislative Draft 1705 recently signed by Governor Mills, and a big shout out to the governor and Joe Marrow of her staff, and General Young and Major General Farnham and Tyler, enacts 4 of our key issues, which I'll talk about at the end of the presentation, dealing with K through 12 education. And last but not least, Delaware also, you know, was one of the best states to start, but continued demonstrating their military family readiness. Senator Kyle Evans Gay linked me up with Senator Bruce Ennis and Representative Chicocha to help us get 3 of our issues through, and she also helped move one of our interstate licensing compacts. So what we do has always been because it's the right thing to do, but in recent years, the military services began voluntarily evaluating it quantitatively as a part of their strategic basing process. And that effort was codified by Congress in the 2020 National Defense Authorization Act. So many of you have seen the Air Force Basing Evaluation Scorecards, and it's our office that's at the center of that, providing them those assessments. That will now be an annual effort by all of the military services. We're working to get everyone on one sheet of music, but the statutory requirements are to look at interstate portability of licensing credentials, housing, healthcare, and then other such issues as each service secretary may designate, which in the case of Maine or the Air Force has been K through 12 education. So here's a look at that scorecard. And as you can see over on the left, it's sort of granular K through 12 metrics, the type of thing that a lawmaker can't necessarily directly impact. You can't pass a law to improve graduation rate or address absenteeism. However, there is a military student transition aspect there, and that gets into our key issues involving military student transition, things like enrollment, timing, virtual education access, and subject areas that are not addressed by the original Interstate Compact for Military Children. And then over on the right, licensure. Now, the Air Force arbitrarily chose 9 occupations to show on their scorecard. At DOD, we look at over 50. There's a study due out in the next couple of weeks from the Clearinghouse for Military Family Readiness at Penn State, where they went into the field and their researchers contacted, I think, 15 occupational boards in each state with a real military spouse, looking at, was the person that they were talking to knowledgeable and trained? Was information about the licensure law easily available and accessible on the website? And did the outcome meet the statute? Because you can have a great law that says we'll issue you a license within 30 days, but the definition of expedited is as varied as the definition of reciprocal. So is that outcome really a 30-day license? DOD takes a bit of a more holistic view. The darkest shade of green here on our continuum are interstate licensing compacts, and we partner with CSG to develop those, but obviously there's not a compact for every occupation, nor is each state a member of every compact. So our next lightest shade of green is an exemption from state requirements, or at least an exemption from onerous paperwork and fees in order to obtain that license within 30 days. But compacts do provide the optimal solution insofar as that as long as you're in a compact state, in a compact occupation, your license is good to go. So our 2022 key issues, as I referenced at the beginning of the call, we always have a couple that are coming off, a couple that are coming on. We continue along the road of licensure to achieve that outcome of a license within 30 days. And more states are joining compacts. I think Massachusetts and Connecticut are going to be number 43 and 44 in terms of compact states. We have 8 that our office tracks. There's actually 9, but for various reasons, we track 8 of them. The 2019 National Defense Authorization Act authorized DOD to enter into cooperative agreement with CSG to develop new licensure compacts and provided $5 million in funding for that effort. We announced 5 of them in February of this year, and a couple of them have had their kickoffs already. So we're working to develop a teacher compact in 50 states, which is super exciting, along with frameworks for cosmetology, dentistry, social work, and massage therapy. And early next year, we'll be announcing the next 5 national occupational boards that have been selected to develop compacts. And on the education front, these are the 4 issues that were rolled into Senator Baldacci's bill, which I referenced. And there's a very similar bill making its way through the Rhode Island legislature, as well as the Massachusetts legislature. We have maintaining in-state tuition for service members and their dependents, even if they are PCS'd out after admission, but prior to attendance. We have advanced enrollment, which is using military orders for proving residency. New York achieved that this year. Member of Assembly Ed Braunstein and Senator Jim Skoufis from West Point. And also, I should say, for in-state tuition continuity, New York was a win there as well, thanks to Assembly Member Marianne Buttonshaw, who represents the Rome Air Force Weapons Laboratory and is a former college president herself at Mohawk Valley Community College in my home state, the Empire State. And I think I saw her Chief of Staff on the line. We have a new issue called open enrollment flexibility to provide priority for military families in existing open enrollment systems. And of course, our Purple Star Schools program, which was enacted in a number of states, some by law, some by executive order. And Representative Chicocha, I think, was the sponsor of all of these in Delaware. And again, my apologies if I'm leaving anyone out. I can't see who's in the chat anymore. And then finally, on children and families, I'm going to skip the first one and just go to child abuse, neglect, and reporting. This allows a local child welfare agency to enter into a memoranda of understanding with their local military installation, which is already a federal mandate, but it defines the information sharing requirements in instances of child abuse and neglect twofold. One, to protect victims and make sure we identify the military affiliation of a victim or suspect at the onset of an investigation, and two, for suitability determinations, so that if that individual is transferred out, in the middle of the investigation, that information travels to the next state to protect the victim. Ask the question, again, a New York win, Senator Harcum. Have you or someone you know ever served in the military? Adding that to each agency's form or client interaction or website to help identify service members and connect them to the resources that are available, because you have so many great people working in your state and at your state agencies, but they can't do what they do if they don't know the person they're talking to is a veteran. And the one that I skipped, concurrent jurisdiction, this issue has been gifted to me. It did not come to our office by way of our usual process. This one was a congressional mandate. The federal government seeks to retrocede its exclusive jurisdiction where that exists in terms of territorial jurisdiction on our military installations, to include guard armories, reserve centers, former installations, major installations. Our slice of that is with an eye towards juvenile matters, both delinquency and abuse and neglect. So in order for states to accept that retrocession, there may be some legislative consent that is required depending on the state and or the installation. And then there is a second level where the family court or the state court that is acting, as the family part will step in when that jurisdiction is waived by the U.S. Attorney or the district court. So I look forward to trying to explain to that to pretty much each of you, in a half-hour Zoom session. But we have restarted travel. So I took my first trip a week ago, or 2 weeks ago now. And that means I may actually be seeing some of you face to face. I was in Connecticut with the governor for the bill signing at the sub-base in Groton on that spouse licensure bill that I referenced earlier. And I have a number of trips coming up. I will be in Maryland with my boss, the DASD, Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense, Ms. Patricia Montez Barron, in October. I should be up in Maine in or around the fourth week in September. And I will be with mi gente de Nueva York at Somos el Futuro in San Juan at the beginning of November. So I'm looking forward to continuing working with you all. 56 bills or 56 policies passed, and 45 bills is far above and beyond anything I could have anticipated. So thank you so much for all your hard work. I'm sorry if I didn't give anybody else a shout out, but looking forward to the discussion, and contact information on the screen, and I'll also drop it in the chat. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Chris. That was great. I will make the PowerPoint that he shared with us available on the CSG East MilVets website after the meeting. Do we have any questions for Chris, or do we want to wait until the end and do kind of Q&A for everyone? You can unmute yourself, and if you choose to. All right, so we'll move on to the next piece on the agenda, which is a presentation on Veteran Service Organization for Housing resolution suggestion. And that would be starting with the Honorable Marge Kilkelly.
Hi, Debbie. It is such an honor to be part of this meeting today. My history with CSG goes back, frankly, to the mid-'80s. I spent 16 years in the Maine House and Senate and was an active member of Council of State Governments for that entire time. I was a Toll Fellow. And then when I left the legislature in 2002, I was on staff for the Eastern Office for 10 years, 4 of those as Deputy Director. Then I moved on to spend 6 years on the Hill with Senator King from Maine. So one of the things that I know really well is that when you've got a problem and when you want policymakers to talk about something or be involved in something, this is certainly the best place to come. And I've worked with Debbie. I know she's wonderful. And I sent her a note and said, can we talk about this? And she said we could. So this is great. I'm also joined by Representative Allison Hepler from Maine, who did a resolution on this issue. And she will speak to this later. We may be joined by somebody from the West Coast, but I'm not sure he's going to be able to make it or not. So I just want to quickly tell you our story. My husband is a Navy vet, Vietnam era. We decided 2 years ago that we wanted to do a refi to reduce our interest rate on our home, and also to make some changes that we wanted to make. And we were going to use his veterans mortgage benefit to do that. We ran into very significant issues with the appraiser, who made numerous errors on the appraisal, and the result was a serious undervaluing of our property, and it wasn't worth even trying to move forward with the refi at that point. The frustration we had was that nobody would listen. The lender wouldn't listen, the mortgage broker wouldn't listen, clearly the appraiser wouldn't listen. And because it was a refi, we didn't have a realtor. So we were trying to do all of this on our own. And for any of you who have gone through the whole housing thing, you know that it is complex to the max. We even tried to appeal to the VA regional office, and at best it fell on deaf ears. Clearly nobody was in the mood to even listen to what our concern was. So one afternoon in desperation, I did a Google search and said, who helps veterans with housing? And I came up with an organization called VA Rep. I sent them an email, and literally within hours, I had an email back from the executive director with his phone number and said, call, I think we can help. He then referred us to Jitu Verato, who was one of the staff people, a real estate professional, and he helped walk us through what we needed to do in order to address the issue of my husband being able to access that benefit and us being able to get the refi done. It was so, I can't even tell you how important it was to find somebody that was willing to listen. The end of the story is we did get the refi done, and the new appraisal was almost double the first one. That was in the course of this is when we discovered that there was no VSO for housing help. When my husband, who is a disabled veteran, when he goes to the Togus VA Center and he needs help with his disability or his health care or anything else that's going on, there's somebody he can turn to, but not when it came to housing, because there is no VSO for housing. So after we went through all of this, and obviously given my background, I've got some idea of how to dig through and make things happen. I decided that it was really important that no veteran should ever have to fight this hard to get their housing benefit that they've earned. And when I've talked with the folks from VA Rep, there are a couple of things that I think are important. One is they hear housing disaster stories all the time. I mean, ours wasn't desperate. We weren't homeless. We weren't losing something, but it was very frustrating not to be able to access the benefit. but they in fact do hear from people who are homeless, people who are looking for housing, people who are trying to figure out what to do to make their credit work so that they can qualify for a mortgage. And they do it, and they work really hard with veterans all over the country. And one of the things that would be particularly significant if there was a VSO chartered for housing, and in this case, I would suggest VA rep, they would have placement in the VA. And so again, when my husband would go to the VA and asked about that, then they'd say, yeah, you need to go talk to these people about housing questions. And only Congress obviously can establish a VSO. There is legislation that is floating around right now. There are a couple of folks in the House and in the Senate that are reviewing it in order to move this forward. But one of the other things I know from having served in the legislature is that you start at the legislative level and you try to push Congress to do the right thing. So I called my legislator, Allison Hepler, and said, can you help us out here? And so she listened to our story and introduced a successful joint resolution of the Maine House and Senate that has now gone to Congress. And I'll turn it over to Allison.
Thanks, Marge. Good morning, everybody. It's really nice to be here. As Marge said, this was an issue that she brought to my attention before she discovered VA rep. We went together to talk to the state to see if we could fix it there. We even submitted a bill to try to address it, and then settled on this when she discovered this VA rep group. That's where I went from knowing nothing about VSOs to knowing a lot, and the difference between congressionally chartered and other and non-chartered, and so I was able to draft a resolution in Maine because it was considered an after deadline bill. I had to present it and pitch it to the Legislative Council leadership, which was an easy thing to do when I explained what we were looking for. And we all know that, a major veteran benefit is housing, but it's not easy to understand, even if you're not a veteran. There are guarantees for loans to purchase homes, but not a VSO that helps talk about sustainable home ownership, financial literacy. And we know that keeping veterans financially solvent is a key to their mental and emotional health, as it is to all of ours, and housing's a key part of it. So when I got the okay from the Leg Council, we have a Veterans Caucus in the legislature. It's in the House and the Senate, and it's bipartisan, and quickly pulled all this together, wrote the resolution. Many of them are co-sponsors. And the last thing I'll say is that this came at the end of our legislative session, and I don't know what it's like in other places, but this is when we do all the hard stuff. And so this was this was a nice break from that. And I really think that, as Marge said, legislatures have it's sort of a grassroots way of putting pressure on Congress to do stuff that we are not as equipped to do. And if we can get more states to do this kind of model, we might make some progress. I'm not sure if there's a bill number that's been introduced yet in Congress, but we're also Marge and I think Debbie put in the chat a draft similar resolution to what we passed if this organization actually wanted to present something itself. So happy to answer any questions, or Marge, anything you want to add?
Yeah, if anybody has any questions, I think our ask at this point is for each of you to consider this in your own state. I don't know if you do House resolutions, Senate resolutions, or joint resolutions similar to Maine. I know every state, approaches things differently, but it is a way to get a message to Congress that this is a significant issue. Putting my state legislator hat on, one of the kind of cool things about it is it's something really wonderful you can do for veterans, and it doesn't cost your state anything. It's basically just saying to the federal government, do this. This is important. And I really do believe that one of the most important aspects of this is the presence of a VSO for housing at the VA service center, so that people who are there for a variety of reasons, or if you're looking at the list of the chartered VSOs, you know that there is one for housing. As I said, I can't even begin to tell you how frustrating it was for me. And I tend to be somebody that can find answers. And, I think for others who must give up, and I just worry about people who have earned this benefit and are not able to access it because there isn't advocacy for them. So we have provided a template if CSG East is interested as an organization. I think that would be amazing. Any of the individual states, that would be wonderful. And if anyone wanted to even take it further to the December meeting of the National CSG, I think that would be pretty amazing as well. And whatever we can do, Debbie can put my email address in the chat. Whatever we can do to assist in moving this forward, certainly happy to do. Happy to tell my story anywhere. If there are questions. And there I am, I'm in the chat. Thank you so much, and thank you, Debbie, for the opportunity to join. This was really fun, and it's fun seeing Bob Hefner and you and other folks that I've worked with before, and I know Rona's on here, and it's a great homecoming. So thank you.
Thank you, Marge. That was great. Quite interesting. My husband and I just bought a house in November, and there was quite a bit of things that we had to navigate that we didn't have any ideas about either. When we applied for the loan through Navy Federal, it wasn't clear how we were writing it. When we got the proposal, it said, it was like, I was like, wait a minute, this is not a VA loan, this is a different kind of loan. And they were like, well, that's what you applied for. And I was like, but I didn't know because it's not clear. And so we had to kind of go back, and it held up the process. So this is near and dear to my heart as well. So thank you.
Great. Great, thank you.
So, absolutely. We aren't able to take a vote on the resolution today, but we will try to, and as a part of this meeting, I'm hoping to be able to decide when and how we can start to have regular meetings. We've been a bit disjointed over the past year, and things have kind of fallen through the crack. But we'd like to regroup, and so we'll talk about that in just a moment. At this point, I'd like to open up the floor to anyone so that we can kind of do a roundtable, take a temperature read on the things that are going on in our member states and across the region. So just feel free to unmute yourself, and we'll have this quick
And
round.
Debbie, I know I did a lot of shout outs already, but I also wanted to acknowledge, I see Representative Sherry Dorsey Walker, Delaware House Licensure Committee Chair, has joined. Senator Stefano from Pennsylvania, a great friend, and Chairman McMurtry, Massachusetts Joint Military and Veterans Affairs Committee are on now as well.
Yes, also Assemblywoman Carol Murphy, thank you and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yes, absolutely. So if anyone, we're going to kind of do this laid back. Anyone who has anything to share with us, we're open and waiting.
I just want to say Representative Hepler took time out of another meeting in order to be here, and I know that she probably needs to leave, and I need to go back to being a farmer. So thank you all very much.
Thanks very much.
Again, anything at all I can do to be of assistance in this, just let me know, because I'm really passionate about this issue, in case you couldn't tell. Thank you.
Thank you again.
Thanks very much. It's nice to meet you all.
One thing, I guess I'll maybe open it up and say that, I talked about how our process and I'm sorry if I talked over Delegate Brooks from Maryland, new chair, joint chair of the Veterans Caucus. We get a lot of inquiries. Where's DOD on this issue or that issue? And we've had over 40 key issues in the 17 years the office has been in existence. So always feel free to reach out, because it's possible that, your issue was at one time on our list, and the department does have a position. And if not, perhaps it is something, that could be a candidate for inclusion as a future best practice. Senator Brooks in New York has a fantastic bill. There's a bill in New Jersey for military service opportunities that's currently being evaluated as a candidate for inclusion as best practice. There's a chapter of Pennsylvania law in terms of family education requirements for Guard and Reserve that might move forward in 2023 as one of our key issues. So just wanted to throw that out there as well, that we work in both directions. Thanks so much.
Chris, hi, it's Assemblymember Ed Bronstein from New York. Just wanted to say hello. You there, Chris? Can you hear me?
Good morning, Assemblyman, from Fort Totten in Queens. And
yeah, I think my name underneath it comes out, just it doesn't spell it out, so I think you missed me. But I just want to thank you for the presentation and all the great work that you've done in New York. The way that you approach the legislature and you advocate for military families, it shows you understand how to get things done. And it's impressive and effective. So I just want to say thanks.
Roger, and thank you, Assemblyman, for carrying our key issue on advanced enrollment. And that was certainly a big win for students throughout the state, from Buffalo to Francis Zabreski out in the Hamptons.
My pleasure. Happy to help.
Okay, Chris, thanks for the presentation. Debbie, thank you, and welcome to everybody that's here this morning. As a Vietnam vet, yeah, I'd like to see if anybody could offer some suggestions. Veterans have service-connected disabilities in varying percentages. And this year, I introduced a bill to try to allow that property tax credit to reflect that percentage of disability. Unfortunately, we weren't successful this year. In our state, you've got to be 100% disabled to be able to get that relief. I know that there are other states in the union that offers different percentages. And then if there are any suggestions that one could offer, I'd love to hear it, to influence my colleagues to be a little bit more favorable toward vets in this respect. I think out of the 23 counties, and of course the city of Baltimore, there's only one county that offers their percentages. If you're 50% through 100%, you can get some relief. So thanks.
Thank you, Delegate Brooks. Anyone else would like to share anything that's going on in your state? Chris, I had a question for you in terms of the cosmetology licensure. Were they able to include the natural hair braiding in that?
So I do not believe that they've had the first kickoff meeting for the cosmetology compact, to my knowledge, but I will inquire and I will get back to you with an answer on that. So I'm going to file that one under to be determined.
Okay, thank you.
And I do see Assemblymember Chris Burdick from my hometown assembly district here in New York has his hand raised. So my deference to my hometown assemblyman.
Well, thank you, Chris, and thanks so much for the excellent presentation. And I joined Ed Bronstein in wanting to see further action in the Assembly when we reconvene in January. And looking forward to working with you, Chris, on the Purple Star program so that we can get that going in our school districts. And as you know, we're going to be working with the State Education Department as well as our colleagues in the State Senate to see if we can make modifications so that it'll be acceptable to them. So thank you for your leadership on that and in bringing the idea to me. And I'm happy to work on it as a member of the Veterans Committee. Thanks again for your work.
Roger, thank you, Assemblyman. And the states that did effectuate Purple Star were due in large part to the advocacy, not only of the Department of Defense, but also the military services. And I see we have a couple of our school liaison officers on today. We have April Boatner-Allen from Joint Base MDL in New Jersey. We have Kristen Ferrulo from the Portsmouth Navy Yard, which is actually in Kittery, Maine, but I think New Hampshire and Maine are both indebted to Kristen for all of her hard work because the students reside in both states, and both states were able to move Purple Star forward this year.
Are you working with MIC3 at all on the Purple Star issue?
Roger. So I do, or I have met almost all of my MIC3 commissioners, and I believe one of them is on the call today, Commissioner Backus from Maine. So I've also been, attending some of the monthly meetings in each of the states. But for those of you who are unfamiliar, the Military Interstate Children's Compact Commission was formed to address interstate function of educational transfers. All 50 states are now members, and each state has its own commissioner, as well as state council. They're all organized, slightly different, but it primarily affects folks who are on Title 10, which is active duty. And if either April or Kristen want to chime in with any of the ways, if you ever have a constituent issue, someone who's calling your office, they are the person that is going to be best able to help you. And there's one at each installation with 500 or more persons.
So in terms of addressing the question of whether or not, well, good morning, everyone. And Chris, thank you so much for acknowledging the presence of the school liaison specialist here and for inviting us to be here. And thank you for all the work that you do to support us. I know I eat a lot, and so I really appreciate your support. But to answer the question, and the DOD has us masked, so I'm following the law. With regard to Purple Star, so Purple Star Schools is a designation that we use to acknowledge schools and districts who take an extra step to support families during their transitional process. With regard to MIC3, the way that MIC3 functions is that it is a body of legislation that is uniform across the 50 states that protects students during those transitions as well. And so I haven't seen an intersect between the two, the Purple Star, because Purple Star is sort of run through MCEC and then through the individual states. But those legislative pieces in terms of what we do for our students with the MIC3, it's something like a student moves from, let's just say, California to New Jersey, and they're in their senior year of high school. Well, they've taken California state history, but New Jersey's high school requirements require that you take New Jersey state history. We support them by saying, okay, they've taken California, that's the equivalent, they can graduate on time. We're not blocking them from graduating on time. Those are the types of issues that MIC3 was designed to assist in, to ensure that our families, our students are graduating on time, that they are allowed to continue in their appropriate grade, especially in the earlier grades of kindergarten. And so, I haven't seen that intersect between the two, between the Purple Star and the MIC3, but that body of legislation is really there to support the transition, and Purple Star is to recognize schools and districts who take the extra step.
Roger, thank you, April. Those are some great points, and it is something that when we have the bill for advanced enrollment or for virtual schools, we get questions like that from the lawmakers. Isn't this something that the MIC3 does? So the compact was drafted way back in 2008 and wasn't designed to address those types of issues, but it's certainly a big help to our active duty military students. So Kristen, anything to add from Kittery this morning? Might be having some sound difficulties there.
Yeah, she may be frozen.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, if she comes back, yeah, she seems to have dropped off. But oh, she's back now. Kristen. We still can't hear you. I'm sorry. Still no sound. Sorry. So one of the
I'm trying.
Oh, perfect. There we go. Read Lima Charlie. Over. We got you now. We hear you.
Yes. Kristen? Oh, did you have anything to add for us? We can hear you now.
Oh, sorry. I keep getting cut out. No, and unfortunately, I didn't hear the end of what Chris was saying in regards to virtual school and, you know, enrollment in MIC3. I do serve under our CO for for MIC3 in both Maine and New Hampshire. And I know that we're obviously committed to the well-being of our students, but April said it perfectly, that they don't fully intersect. We both are just in support of the military family. And I know Miranda Chapman, who I believe is also on today in Connecticut as a school liaison for Subbase New London, is, you know, feels the same way. We work hard to make sure that our military families have what they need in their transition and everything that pertains to them in their educational career.
Thank you. Do we have anything from Delaware?
Yes, good morning. Representative Namdi Chukwocha here. Would just like to say first, thank you for the presentation and thank Chris for all of the hard work. Thank the DOD for their recommendations and priorities, really help our General Assembly begin to set our own initiatives and path forward. Is very helpful. Look forward to our continuing efforts and to continue to advance the support services and advocacy that we have for our veterans, our military service connected families, as well as our VA in our state. So again, thank you. And it's been a great partnership for the first half of this session and look forward to continuing when we get back into session. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. So, so we've come to this part in, I think, the meeting where we've had great strides in the beginning of creating the Military and Veterans Affairs Committee. I'll give you a little background on how we got here. I am a retired military spouse. And I served as an ombudsman for 2 tours of my husband. My husband was active duty Navy, and I served as ombudsman when they were building the Charette Center in Virginia, and I served while we were stationed in Roosevelt Roads, Puerto Rico, right before Hurricane Hugo hit. And so when I came to CSG, I worked as an administrative assistant, and I just kept thinking, CSG is such an important organization. How come we aren't looking at military and Veterans Affairs issues? And so the former director, Wendell Hanford, I approached him with the offer to create a Military and Veterans Affairs Committee, and he agreed that we should pitch it to see if we could get any traction. And we did. We got a great response from our members. And Delegate Ben Brooks has been with us almost from the beginning, if not from the beginning. And so we've tackled a lot of good issues, I think. We held a mental health kind of single issue seminar back in 2017. And as a part of that, we had someone from Maine come in and ask and want to know about Ask the Question. New Hampshire had done that first, and so we put them all together, and this is a part of this new Ask the Question issue that's going on. And I give you all of this background to say that, you know, we find ourselves here, but we've had a lot of stop-starts, and we need we need our members to help us, because we're member driven. It's not just me coming up with, hey, let's have an idea. This is really about how CSG East can assist you in the work that you're doing. And so we'd like to, at this point, maybe create a formal schedule for having meetings so that we can kind of discuss things, talk about those issues that are relevant to you, and how we can be helpful to you throughout the region. So I'm proposing that we have a meeting, a follow-up meeting to this meeting in September. Maybe meet the third Friday, morning or afternoon, whichever works best for everyone. And then meet in October, again in March, again in June, and then for our annual meeting next year in New Hampshire. That way it's not taxing on your time, but it allows us to meet as a group so that we can really dig deep and get some work done. So that's my proposal, and I would love to talk about it if anyone is interested in kind of just fleshing that out. Thank you, Chris. So by a show of hands maybe, or the yes button as Chris has used, can we get a temperature read on those who are considering or think it may be a good idea? Thank you, Delegate Brooks. Thank you, Representative Chwalka. Thank you, Assemblywoman Murphy. Thank you, Representative Dorsey. Okay, so what I will do is I believe I have everyone's contact information. I will, thank you, Assemblyman. I will put together a list. I will send out an email just kind of outlining what we've just talked about. I'll reestablish the dates, and if everyone's agreeable to that, just respond to it, and we can go ahead and get started. I would like to take up the resolution on the VSO housing next month in September when we reconvene. So that's something to think about. We have a few minutes left, probably maybe around 15-20 minutes left. But if we don't have anything else, because this is the first time we've talked in a year, matter of fact, I would say 18 months, and I'm glad that you are all here. It's very heartening to see everyone ready to participate. I will do the follow-up with everyone, and we can conclude the meeting now, and then reconvene next month. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And so, at this point, we'll conclude the meeting, and I thank everyone profusely for coming and participating, and I hope to be able to continue the work that we're doing. Be well, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.